This week on RSBANDB Update is Patch Week with a revival of sorts and Mod Lee's Patch Notes series. Is it good for the community? We'll find out. We also discuss what we would do for a game jam. It comes down to invention, holiday events, and a little something called Prestige Mode. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 984, recorded Thursday, May 2nd, 2024. Prestiging Game Jams. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of RSBANDB Update. This week, Patch Week in RuneScape, but we do have some interesting stuff to talk about. In addition to that, we're going to talk about our most wanted game jam updates that we would do if we had the ability to say, hey Jagex, make a game jam update, or if we were content devs there, what would we work on for our game jam time? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Might involve invention, might involve some holiday events, and of course it might also involve something called Prestige Mode, but more on that later. Tanis, you're here as you are each and every week. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, Shane.
Pernasius is also here. I knew I had to ask you because I actually had a feeling that your Prestige Mode would appear on this list. And we haven't talked about it since 2016-17, so it might be time to have another look at that and see where things are at on that, in addition to all the other patch notes of the week. But, of course, if you want to follow along, full show notes can be found over at update.show. We do have a community Discord as well at update.show/Discord, and the Friends chat can be found at BitsBytes. You can find me in-game at Shane12088. Tanis is at Tanis79, and Pernasius is our wonderful character in the week without numbers. But before we dive too far into this, just a quick word of thanks to our experienced tier Patreon members, for whom without RSBANDB Update would not be possible. This week, I'd like to thank Amos Reed, Andrew C., Drama Free, Jason S., Jesse W., Kesky, Ricky A., Rippeth, Runestar, and The Naked Captain. Big, huge thank you goes out to all of those people, and you'll be hearing more about our Patreon offerings a little bit later in the podcast. Alrighty, patch notes for the week. Starting off this week, we start with patch notes to Requiem for a Dragon, where previously, if you inspected Zorgoth's ring while wearing it, it would unequip it.
Oh.
That's kind of a weird one. Speaking of Zorgoth's ring in particular, did you guys have a chance to upgrade it after the quest yet?
Haven't yet. No,
I went in the bank.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. You guys should do that at some point in time.
I will, but because I use the other ring you guys got me on at the moment, the Reaver's ring, I didn't really touch it. So yeah, I will. I will get around to it.
I think there is a case to be made that for Slayer you probably do want Zorgoth's ring, just because the way it accrues the souls, and we'll probably do a deep dive into that at some point because it creates some interesting play with that. But I upgraded mine. It took 45 attempts. 45 rituals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it wasn't too bad.
Sorry, yeah. It's just rituals, yes.
Yeah, because I did the lowest level ritual there was, and I put speed glyphs on it. So it was, 20 seconds per ritual, and that was fine.
I always use the multiplier, so I get the extra ectoplasm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably what you want to be doing in this day and age, and I mean that's where Ungale really comes into it, as we talked about last week, is that after completing the quest you get 20% extra sustain for all your resources there, so it just adds to the profitability of making ectoplasm. But that's the next patch note. Completing a manifest ectoplasm ritual is now required for the In Rituals We Trust achievement, which is the achievement you get for completing all the rituals in the game, minus the quest-specific ones, which they clarified the description of this week as well, that it doesn't require those quest-specific ones. And they also made it so that the Pumpkin Mask and the Ensouled Pumpkin Mask now apply their durability benefits to both the and Ungale ritual sites.
Very nice.
Which, again, leading into one of last year's microtransaction-y pieces of controversy. So.
Free candles.
Micro controversies. There we go.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Communion rituals can no longer be completed at Ungale because this is to avoid the loss of materials while being unable to gain souls at Ungale. So, why waste the mementos or what have you for that? General changes. They updated the look of the Pernix and Shadow Gem Pernix outfits to better align with player feedback, and they were actually quite responsive to this in terms of the dev blog that they put out, and they were actually able to get this in within days after this promo launched, and then the feedback came in those last couple of days, and then by Monday, we had this into the game. And if you look at where we were last week compared to where we are today, and the original, obviously the original one much more lower polygon count. But if you look at last week's, you can see that last week's was not. There were definitely some things that you kind of leaned into that, and it's a little bit different. It doesn't respect the original in terms of the comparison. If you kind of
it looked heavier.
Just look at them, heavier, and that shoulder guard was more, I guess you could say spiky. I guess maybe elongated might be a better way of saying it. So.
It looked a bit more sort of melee style armor than range style armor.
Yeah, and you got that same sort of thing too, with the skirt on that one, from last week's, and you compare that to this week's, and you just look at this across the way. It's a lot more faithful to the original one that's there. So
I mean, personally, it's a cosmetic. It didn't bother me overly much. I don't know that it deserved quite the outrage it got, but kudos to Jagex to actually listen to the community and get it in so quick. Because normally these type of things take them a little while, and done within a week was pretty good.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about this too is that just to say where maybe things could be better on this is that this one in particular, I only got a handful of the Shadow Gem tokens off a treasure hunter that I would need to get this, and I think we would do good if we had some sort of visibility in terms of when these things were going to come back. Because I thought maybe I'd complete this one on the side, but I'm two tokens away from the Raziel event, that one that happened earlier this year. That token event on Treasure Hunter, I'm 2 tokens away from being able to complete that set, and I'm like, oh my god, how long am I going to have to wait to do that? So it would just be nice to know when these kind of token events are going to repeat, or if there's going to be other ways to get them in the future on this.
Maybe like bring out a bit of a calendar like they do with the wilderness update events, where they tell you all the merchant when it's coming up next and things like that.
Or even just say after 3 months we're going to rerun it again, and after 6 months we'll throw it in the Oddman store or something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
Even if it was just something like that, just to have some sort of general timeline. I think I'd be happy with that. So
I think I got 9 of the dark gem things, and I needed 10 for the body piece.
So you just need a few more.
Yeah. And that's only for one, the body piece. I think you needed 10 for the body, 8 for the legs. And I think it was, less for the others. But, I mean, I'm not going to make gloves and boots. I mean, if I'm doing anything, it's the body piece is the main one. So.
Yeah, and I just want to come back to the Pernix side of it, because obviously whenever you'd equip a piece of Pernix, you get the override for the old one. But they said we've also sat down with a range of Jaemons from across the team, some of whom have been rocking Pernix armor for more than a decade. And I just want us to read into that statement for a minute, is that they sat down with people in their own team to consider these changes who were wearing that armor. And what that tells me is that there was a design phase around updating this armor that really didn't look into the stakeholders of people who wore it in the past, even with inside Jagex, if they, for this one, if the JMods had concerns about it. So
yeah,
just an interesting little tidbit on how some of this art stuff goes. And
as you said, I mean, because so many of the mods do actually play the game, so maybe a little bit more consulting, within the office, even going ahead with these things.
And I don't want to extend the tea leaf reading out too far, but is this the first time that a live ops treasure hunter update has spurred the graphical update of a piece of content in game, piece of armor in game?
Well, I would say so. Yeah, probably.
Isn't that an interesting head scratcher when you put it that way?
Yeah,
it is.
And I mean it, and I'm just going to say, for the people who are wanting to highlight microtransactions in RuneScape and whether or not they're predatory, World of Tanks put out a new event this week that is Star Trek themed. And there's, about, 8 to 10 premium tanks, premium vehicles you can get for it. And those are, going to be like a 1 in 250 roll based on how their loot boxes work. And you're guaranteed to get it after 50 boxes. And you need to put gambling in to get their product, to get the premium vehicles that you used to be able to buy with real world money. And I just put this on a spectrum to show that for as much as people hate on Treasure Hunter, hate on RuneScape's monetization models, it could be a lot worse. A lot worse.
Yeah.
But,
of course. I mean, they're a business. They're not a charity. They've got to make money. And, as we said, those loot box style things are the best way to make money, unfortunately.
Right. And let's be honest here. We will have a frank discussion if we do ever get to a point, where there's new tier 90 plus weaponry just being put on Treasure Hunter. Then we will have a serious conversation about what is going on. Yeah, if your best in slot armor and weapons come from Treasure Hunter, then I'm gonna take issue with it. But when it's like tier 80 gear, tier 70 gear, it's like no big issue. Especially when it's just cosmetic. Especially
stuff.
Cosmetic overrides.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best way to do it. Cosmetic overrides, and people want to buy keys to get it. I do wish they'd make it tradable. But then you'll get the merchanters taking over and putting price. I mean, it's hard.
I mean, just look at
that's the problem.
How rare, for example, the ability override tokens are.
Exactly.
Right? So.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking of. I sort of think, I'd love to see him do that, and then I think, but then all those merch clans that just do it and then just pump the prices right up and screw everyone out of it anyway. So what's the point? Just put them on Treasure Hunter and make it. As I said, I have no issue. If they put something on Treasure Hunter and you can go for a win, and then 18 months later they say we're going to chuck this on Solomon's store, for $20. Yeah, do it that way. So people get their, they can have it as exclusive for the 18 months, and then everyone can buy it on Treasure Hunter on Solomon's store if they want to. Yeah.
All right. Leftover Christmas decorations have been removed from various stores in Varrock. I never noticed those.
They're still in my fort.
That's because you have Christmas decorations turned on that you unlocked.
Oh, do I? Okay.
Yeah. Just like there's Easter ones and Halloween ones.
I did not know that. I thought.
Yeah. You talk to the same person who allows you to change the season in your fort. And then that's where you can enable or disable
in the first place.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I leave my... People might disagree with this, but I leave my fort on winter trees and Christmas decorations on all year.
It's always Christmas.
Well, I can't be bothered changing it, so it's staying that way on mine too.
I do. I am known for running the countdown to Christmas.
Rain wins the war of Christmas.
We just passed 8 months until Christmas, folks.
I had 1 year where I didn't pull down the Christmas tree until the middle of March.
Okay, that beats me. That beats me. Last week of January is the latest.
The ex used to say, "Will you get that tree down?" Yeah. And I was just always too busy to do things. And then one day I come home and she'd put it right in the front of the TV, so I had to do it.
Well, that's a way of doing it.
That'll work.
That's effective.
Next one is about our peer system that we talked about last week, in particular with XP blocks and Nastroth. If a player has blocked XP in a skill via Nastroth and lends that skill to another player via the assist system, XP earned for the assister by the assistee is now blocked. Oops, that would have been annoying if you thought you were assisting somebody and you ruined yourself. And finally, the Heffen agility course lap timer now counts when the player is busy and saves elapsed time on the client when logging out, capped at under an hour. That's interesting. I never knew that would be an issue. But I guess you can log out in the middle of the agility course, and then it would reset times.
I never actually realised that people would log out in the middle of it. If you're running for time, you just run it, finish the lap, and then go do what you had to do.
I mean, I can see a world where you might disconnect or you might need to leave, you know, immediately, something like that. So
ate a bad burrito, have to run.
Never know.
Or you ate a burrito on its own.
Might have been a good burrito.
I don't like burritos. But alrighty. Speaking of patch notes in general, there is something that is back, something that has been absent for years. Mod Lee's Patch Notes series is back, this time on the RuneScape YouTube channel.
Boom, yak City.
Was that one of his was that one of his RuneScape raps? Okay. I never listened to those.
Well, you're not a connoisseur of the rap.
No, I'm not. And you know, the interesting part about this, and he made it clear in the comments or wherever it was, that he's not a full JMod with this. He's just using the Mod Lee name out of comedy's sake. He is not the new community manager. And
yet.
Right. Yet. But I think when you look at all this and you see what's going on, it's a good thing.
People realize, save us, fondly. Save us.
There are people who are out there saying that.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just reading some of the comments. You know, first good decision Jagex was made in a decade. A rare Jagex win. Welcome back. Return of the King. It's got 907 likes, not a single dislike. So yeah, it's popular.
It probably has dislikes. You can't see dislikes anymore on YouTube.
Oh, can't you?
Only the creator sees them. Yeah.
Ah, did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be a real dedicated asshole to do it now. You're not just showing off to people.
Yeah. And I think this is great for a couple of reasons. The first one is that when you look at this, like you said, everybody always looks back with affinity at what Mod Lee did for Jagex and his community surrounding RuneScape 3. So that's point number one. Point number two is that he was seen as an authority figure, somebody who, you know, had the pulse of the community taken, which, we need to be honest, after Hero Pass, after the fallout from Necromancy, after, you know, the changes to combat that people liked or they didn't like, and after, you know, this drought of content that we had, there needs to be somebody who is able to take that pulse, report back to Jagex, and act as a voice for the community in a somewhat unofficial capacity. Because, you know, Mod Doom, Modazana, and the communications team, community management team, what have you, they're wonderful. They do good jobs. But there's a level of interaction that you can get with somebody who is unofficial that can, in many ways, at times supersede that and allow a better streak of communication, as I see it. And the other thing with this is that it allows for there to be an impression put out, and, you know, it's always been this way, but it allows there to be an impression put out that RuneScape is getting week-to-week updates. Because there's been people who have said that, RuneScape doesn't get week-to-week updates anymore. Well, if you're able to do patch notes each and every week, then aside from, the game jam weeks, you're probably going to have a better communication streak on this. So, I see 3 wins on this, and I don't see anything bad from it. You guys agree, disagree, different way?
Yeah, I agree. Modley is, it was just, besides everything you said, on top of all that, he's just a hell of a nice guy. He's friendly. He's genuine when he'll speak to you on his stream and stuff like that. No, I agree. This is a good decision. And I don't know if I honestly I don't think he'll take on a bigger role as like me. I
don't think it would be wise
Shane,
if he did.
Right spot,
yeah, I don't think it would be wise if he did, because that makes him official, which in many ways makes it so he can't say the things that the community wants him to say.
Yeah. So it's good. It's
and
good.
The good thing about Modley though as well, he doesn't go for the faux outrage. If it's something he needs to criticize, he'll criticize it. But it'll be, it won't just be there just to sort of, get that clickbaiting happening and the fake outrage we see on a lot of things. He's any criticisms he gives will be constructive.
Yeah, and we've been having discussions about that internally too, about where things like that land. Because the way we see it from the podcast perspective is that the podcast is in itself the medium, right? Like, Update is supposed to be a podcast first and foremost. And that's one of the things a lot of people get confused about when they find us on YouTube, is they find, the podcast and are seeing, that there's this hour-plus thing, and they're wondering how are they going to listen to all this when they're used to, videos, that are, 5 to 15 minutes in length. But the podcast for long form, especially when it's posted to the podcast listeners like Apple and Spotify and what have you, is not a platform for sensationalism. It's a platform, as I see it, to have a two-way discussion with the listeners and us, the creators, and that's definitely something that we like doing. And you don't, in my view, facilitate that on podcast form by being overly sensationalist, and that's why we're the way we are. And it's just very good to see that from an angle on YouTube as well. And I think that's why bringing back a dose of that to the RuneScape side is a good thing. When if you look at the average temperature of what the RuneScape content creator base looks like on YouTube, there will be times at which it's very hot and very clickbaity and very sensationalist. And, the more we can move away from that and the more we can moderate that, I think is a good thing. So having the patch notes videos act as that force directly on the RuneScape channel help that. So,
yep.
Good choice all
and
around,
again,
I'd say.
Yep, I'll start watching these again. I mean, I don't watch a lot of RuneScape content just because it is the perpetually outraged that are doing it. They're sitting there and it's they want to find things to be angry about, and they blow up the smallest molehill into a mountain just to get those views and get people riled up. And I don't understand that mindset.
No, it's overtly toxic, and I'd like to see less of that online. But
definitely,
I'm going to add a certain pick of the week that I was talking about in pre-show to the pick of the week list for a future week. Now that I've mentioned that, because I don't think I've actually talked about that in general. But
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think you.
Yeah, I don't think I've talked about Nebula as pick of the week, but. Moving on, I'm going to thank our Patreon supporters who buy into that vision that we have, both literally and figuratively. So this week I'd like to thank Alaska, Alvaro L., Amos Reed, Anatoly D., Andrew C., Arvids L., Shubura, Daniel W., Dominic R., Drama Free, Duramax, Free Milk, G Hammy, Guy Lafleur, Jacob G, Jade Gizmo, Jason S, Jeebus, Jesse W, Jim M, Kesky, Lemon Lodge, Luminos, Nate the Great, Parnassius, Renhawk, Ricky A, Rippeth, Runestar, Samuel FL, Scott DS, Shirt Pants, Targayen, Thule, The Naked Captain, The Dabbing Goat, Tim, Tom V, Truth Ray, Ukulele Steve, Zant, and Zazakon. Thank you, everybody. It truly means the world to us for what you do here and how you support the podcast. We couldn't do it without all of you guys. And if you want to learn more about this, head on over to patreon.com/RSBANB. There you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. And with that, you get access to the entire back catalog of monthly bits, which of course includes recent ones like the Quest tier list, like getting involved in PVM. It's basically an hour-long tutorial on how to start your PVM adventure from, say, God Wars 2 level, just as an example. We also have ones in the past, like tier lists on Dailyscape and skills. We also have discussions on Legacy Combat, EOC, bossing, you name it, quests, lore, practically everything under the sun. Patreon.com/RSBNB, more than 60 extra episodes available right there. We also do have the VIP tier, where for $3 a month you'll receive a special rank on Discord, a chat channel, and access to high-quality stereo versions of the show. And we have our Insider tier, where for $5 a month you'll receive a shout-out on the podcast each and every week and gain exclusive access to the outtakes that we use to make the clip show at the end of the year. And of course, as I mentioned at the top of the show, big, huge thank you to our experienced tier Patreon members who truly do make RSBNB Update go, but that's our special limited $10 a month tier. If you want to learn more about any of this, just head on over to patreon.com/RSBNB. Means the world to us. And the monthly bit voting is actually happening right now. I haven't checked today where we're at on that, but the interesting thing about that is the topics for this that we're voting on are RuneScape's abandoned content, the God alignment chart, and temporary game modes. So this ends on Sunday, the poll. Abandoned content is things like content that, we were promised but maybe never arrived. So like the Church of You, Bank Bidders, Skilling Offhands, the Quest That Shall Not Be Named. God alignment chart is putting all the RuneScape gods on the classic D&D alignment chart. And then temporary game modes is having a look at game modes like leagues and fresh start worlds and talking about what makes them a success and what makes them resonate with players. But right now, abandoned content is winning, and normally the way these polls go, that's pretty much locked in at this point unless we get a deluge of votes by Sunday. So if you're listening to this on the weekend and you want to vote in this poll, patreon.com/RSBNB. Thanks so much, everybody. It means the world to us.
Thanks.
Thank you. And to Dom and Nick R. Are you brothers or just father-son? Just
What?
Tannis will get that one. Dom and Nick. Truth, come on.
Yeah, okay.
The Judgment Day. Sorry, I heard you say that name. It just I've been watching the WWE before I got on, and Truth, he's a very confused young man. When he went, they were having the Australia tour. He went to Austria instead, and Dominic Mysterio, he thought they were twin brothers, Dom and Nick, and he's a fan favorite.
That's hilarious.
It's a dad joke. Just forgive me.
Yeah, it's fine. But all right. So let's start off with some Game Jam updates. And to be clear, these are Game Jam updates that we would like to see put into the game if we had the power to make them ourselves as JMods, or if somebody at Jagex asked, what would you like to see for a Game Jam update? We've got 3 of them to go with, and I'm gonna start with mine. And,
or if Elon Musk gave me $1 billion to buy it and let me own it.
Okay, that's an option as well. That's an option as well. So mine is a QOL, quality of life pass over Invention, with a simple top-level goal of doing 3 things for the skill. First one, of removing or lessening the RNG in invention perk creation, allowing people to move invention perks easier between weapons, and better telegraphing of what invention will do for you. Now, for the first one, in terms of removing or lessening the RNG in perk creation, I see a number of ways you could do this. The first one is a really simple one, I think, and it's just to make the perk items that you make with the skill, to make those tradable on the GE.
Yes. Number one should happen.
And the reason,
and give skillers a chance to make some money.
Yeah. See, that's
well.
interesting now that you mentioned skillers on that. I didn't really think of that. But the way I see this is that I don't want to play the mini game of potting up my invention, disassembling whatever item after I level it to level 9, mind you, somewhere, and getting the perks, and then rolling the dice, or rather the components, and then rolling the dice to see if I can make the perk that I want. I don't like doing that. That is my least favorite part of upgrading my weapons or getting a new weapon in the game.
Yep.
I absolutely despise that. So the easy way out is just to make these sorts of things tradable on the GE, but I realize that doesn't help Iron Man characters.
Iron Man limit themselves. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a form of game you choose. You choose not to go on that, so that's fine. You know, that's the way you want to do it. You have to get all those yourself. I mean, making them tradable on the GE for the normal play mode, there is nothing wrong with that. And I don't think that we should be taking Iron Man into consideration when we think about things like that. Certainly your first one of lessening the RNG is great.
I do have a way of doing that
hand
too.
In hand.
I did talk to an Iron Man about this.
Yeah. But they go hand in hand. So if you are lessening that RNG, they're gonna benefit because they can do their things and know that they've got a much greater chance or 100% chance of getting it. And people like myself who don't want to sit there and level up an item, I want to get that perk. I just want to jump on the GE, put my money in, grab it.
That would be my preferred way,
weapon.
is using the GE, yes. 100%.
Yeah.
100%, right? Because it would actually entice me to use perks that I'd never used before, because I don't want to play the gambling game of leveling up all those, out of Vindicta to get Illusionkin components to get an Aftershock. I just don't want to do that. I don't want to level up Zamarakian spears to get Zamorak components. I don't want to do that. So I would just like to, if necessary, even spend a bit more to just be able to go out and buy the perks. And, I realize that might, take some of the original design out of the skill, but come on, it's been 8 years. That skill is the only elite skill in the game. It's a black box, and I talk to, new level players all the time. They don't understand the skill. And I don't think the majority of players do either.
I really don't, and I'm 200 mil in it.
Right. And this gets to one of my things later, but effectively, people know what perks to do because people have done the work. But to do that work and to understand what perks to do and understand what the perks do at a very core level, that takes time, more time than people want. And, you really question, is that a good thing for a skill in the game? So, I talked to Iron Raxor, who's been on the show before, makes those wonderful cinematic videos, and his idea behind this, in terms of removing or lessening the RNG side of it, was to have an option to dump in more components when making the gizmos, and that would, in effect, give you a higher chance of getting the specific perk combo that you want. So that's another way of doing it. Another thing that I came up with, aside from giving more materials to get a higher chance of getting it, is an upgrade at the Invention Guild, similar to the junk chance reductions, that you could, either buy the token for on the GE or make with a certain amount of components, and then you would, let's just call it, its working title would be the RNG reducer. You'd come up with a better name for what it would be, but effectively what it would do is just make it easier to get those perks for a cost.
The
either up
RNGesus,
front.
the RNGesus tokens.
Yeah, something like that. So that's section 1. And initially I was waffling, you know, are these hit list updates or these game jam updates? Then I saw your guys and I thought, okay, those are kind of hit list, but they're more game jam style, so I'm going game jam on this. The other thing I think Invention really needs is the ability to move perks between weapons easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now we have that device at level 115 that I'm forgetting the name of. It's hilariously expensive to make, and then it gets consumed at the end of it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And I think it needs like undead components or something weird like that on it. And it's just like, why do they make it so hard to move a perk between a different set of weapons? And, you know, I understand what the design was initially on this, but I'm thinking at this point in the game, once you have the perks, you should just be able to move them freely between weapons and give, you know, level 15 or whatever it is to be able to use that something else for when you level up. So
Yeah, I mean, the evidence that it's okay is they made overloads tradable. Sky didn't
right.
fall.
That's actually a good analogy.
The next day.
Yeah, it's the equipment
okay.
separator at level 115 Invention. Now, unless the item in question has a level over 17 or 19, where there's a 25 or 50% chance to save the separator. The separator needs 2 undead components, 35 protective, 35 precious, 35 ethereal, and 400 clear. Now, the undead components come in at 6.5 mil each, and to get undead components, well, what are you talking about when it comes to undead? These are things that you're going to have to disassemble that include Barrow's equipment, malevolent armor pieces, vengeful armor pieces, and the Sun Spear. Now, the Sun Spear, you could make an argument, is kind of easy, as is the necromancy weapons and armor north of 70. But again, equipment separator, untradeable. Maybe make the equipment separator tradable and make it so that there's a higher chance of it being preserved at level 17 and 19, and always make it 50% or 25%. Just something to that effect if we're looking for, you know, something patch note level that would make moving these things around easier. Do something to the equipment separator in terms of making it easier to get, or making it so that there's always a 25% chance to preserve it and a 100% chance to preserve it if the item is over level 19.
20.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, if it's a level 20, it should be 100%. You just have one in your bank and you just use it on whichever.
right, because, you know, if you're using a weapon and you use it for PVM, you're going to get to level 20 in no time on that.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, yeah, I've got a set of each equipment that I have, and they're all level 20, and they all have, you know, the recommended perks that that the wiki told me. But when a new weapon comes out, not only I have to level that up, but I have to go for all those perks again, or, as you said, spend that money to try and
play the exact RNG game again. And
exactly.
And I'm thinking the thing that I wanted to do with this, in terms of my idea of making the perks easier to get, coming back to that, the thing I had in mind with this is that, do both of these things preserve Invention as an item sink? As in, will the perks still be made, and will those items still be sunk if perks become tradable? And the answer to that is yes.
Oh, definitely, because there'll be more people going for it. And as I said, I mean, there are some perks out there I won't even bother looking at, because I'm not going to sit there and level up items and then break them down and then, oh, shit, I missed, so I've got to go and do it all again. If I can just go, and okay, it's going to cost me, you know, double the amount that I would have done trying to get it myself. But if I can just buy it off the GE, there's going to be people out there who are going to love doing that and you know, making those components, putting them on the GE. I mean, it's a money maker for them. It's a money sink for me. But I get what I want they get what they want, and lower players can also start perking up and learning things, and it just helps get people into perking and experimenting with different ones on different creatures and such. And you'll probably have people then, okay, well, if I can just buy it off there, I'll have a set that I'm going to use for this creature, and I'll have a different set for this boss, and you'll have a couple of different sets that'll all have the same, or sort of one or two different perks on them, but it will open that up a bit more too for more of the casual PVMer. Because I mean, I know all your elite PVMers will do that, but people like me, I have one set of each, and that's it. That's done at whatever boss.
Yeah. And when it comes down to it, yes, to give a higher chance to get a specific perk, you would need to make that cost higher so that these items are still sunk, and it's not as though you can just turn them on and get the perk for free, because you got to preserve the item sync, utility of Invention, and I think that's the through line of all these things, is that Invention must be preserved as the item sync skill. With this, just find ways around that to make getting perks easier. And then that goes to the other thing that I would do, and this is more of a tutorializing kind of thing, I guess you could say, with Invention. It's that if you look at how do you learn Invention, you're told that, you level up to 27, then you start augmenting gear, and then you either, siphon it at 12 or disassemble it at level 9. And then when it comes to perks, people learn their perks from either the wiki or from a video. But very few people actually truly understand what's going on under the hood with these perks. As in, players can be told what perk to use for woodcutting, for example, but they don't necessarily understand why, because the amount of time you need to put in to the skill to learn that and to do that is just not worth it when somebody else has already done that. And my view on this is, does it really make sense for there to be a skill in game where the best way to learn the skill and to, do the skill is what the wiki tells you to do? Shouldn't it be discoverable in the game? So I would say there needs to be, and this is going to actually maybe the hardest part of this update, is trying to figure out, well, how do we make it more clear what the perks do, and how the perks multiply with other effects in the game, right? Because if you look at the example of woodcutting, you need to understand about first how the chance of cutting a log works to understand what woodcutting perks might be best, because that's how you get woodcutting XP. Then how the game converts critical hits or calculates accuracy if you're looking at combat, or the order of operations on defensive bonuses, and you realize how big of a rabbit hole this becomes, and it's why so many of the people out there who use Invention, even people like ourselves, just look at the wiki sometimes to figure out what perks are best to do, rather than actually diving deep into it. And Invention is a solved skill on that front because of the wonderful resources on the wiki, but ask yourself, should it be that way? And my experiences in talking with new players and people who are mid-level and about to unlock the skill is they call it a black box, and they don't really understand it until they watch a video on it or read the entire wiki entries about it. And I think that's a problem, and I think that's also probably why we haven't seen subsequent elite skills in-game. It's just that Invention needs to have its rough edges smoothed out, but that's probably the most difficult thing out of everything I've talked about here.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm 200 mil Invention. I mentioned before. I don't understand it. That is probably the one thing I use the wiki for the most. If I'm doing necromancy come out, I went straight to the wiki. What do I need? I don't even read the whole thing. I just see what perks I need, and I go and I roll for those and put them on there. I don't know what they do. but Wiki tells me that's the best. That's what I did. You know, as you said, like with the wood cutting, what are the best perks? Maybe you have a little, as you're wood cutting and you're getting close, a little gnome pops up and says, hey, have you thought about perking your items? You can put honed on, which does this. You can do this, and sort of explains what each perk does. I don't know, but, you know, I think, yeah, it needs to be more intuitive in game than it is, because it is the wiki skill. You just go to the wiki to find out what to do and how to do it.
Yeah, and that's what I think what makes it more of a game jam rather than a hit list one, because I think you could, you know, do
a lot of work.
You could do community hit list by making perks tradable, no problem. You could do hit list by making an item that reduces RNG on perks made. You could do hit list by, you know, making certain perks after you make them once with more materials, make them, you know, or you as you make them with more materials, make them become more common on that, and you know that would be hit list. But as you start heading into things like moving perks around and then talking about, you know, well, what is invention? It's really it's an identity that it has, but it's not something that's immediately clear. So that's mine. And you know, if this has struck a chord with you and you want this in game, go repost this segment somewhere. Tell some JMods about it. Very much would like that. All right,
definitely.
Tanis, you surprised me with this one, but I guess it's really not much of a surprise here. The return of certain holiday events, and I think I know which one you're talking about here. So what's your idea with this?
So my idea is to bring back a beloved holiday event from the past, and make it permanent. Think Face Punch Bonanza, right? And then of course the trick to this is to make it somewhat relevant but not too rewarding, right? And so what I would like to do is bring back Dev's House from, I think it was 2015, a Holloway event. But it was the one where we were all Ghostbusters together and we had our proton packs and we, you know, we captured the ghost and of course, you know, they had the rewards of being able to get the cosmetic, you know, Ghostbusters looking type gear, and it also had like a, gosh, what was it? A bone burner, or burned bones and herbs.
Was that the ectoplasmator one?
The ectoplasmator was another reward on it, yeah.
Right, yeah. 2016 was the year for that one.
2016, there we go. So yeah, I would like to see this just bring it in game. It's something that we always talk about as one of the best holiday events.
Definitely.
Now that we have necromancy as a skill, a lot of games do have some kind of a mini game that can benefit a particular skill. Think, you know, back in the day, like divination caches, things like that. What I envision.
Oh, so it'd be like a little mini game then for necromancy.
It could be, yeah. And where, you know how like the Ghostbusters, when they capture a ghost, they put it in the little box and thing. I was thinking of those boxes could be a reward that you would use on a necromancy ritual site. And that could be take the place of like a memento, you know, like a focus or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Bones, whatever you're using. And then it would reward X number of souls, you know, depending on what kind of ghost you took down. You know, if you wanted to go like full bore into the story kind of part of it, I mean, I guess now that we have Ungale, you know, we could be cleansing these poor corrupted souls and sending them back to you know, I don't know. You could do a lot with, you know.
What if it was a ritual you could only do on Ungale? Then it's of course behind the quest from last week, but what that would do is that replaces the communion ritual that we lost. I know you mentioned using it for, you know, souls, so you could do it. You could do it on for souls, and maybe you do it on Ungale for something else. just as kind of, a different reward space for that, if such a thing would be possible for that.
Yep. And I think there's a few other things, that you could, of course, incorporate the old rewards, just, for nostalgia. Also, like, having an additional source of ghostly essence wouldn't be bad. It's only dropped by a few things. So yeah, I just think it would be fun. I think it's the right kind of scope, and it would give relevance to just something that we all had a good time with.
It was probably one of the best holiday events in recent memory.
Yeah, I think whenever I think of Halloween, I come back to this one. Just like, Christmas, I come back to 2006 and whatnot, or last year's, because last year's was really good on that.
Yeah.
So
the hard part of this was to find a reason to make it relevant.
Yeah.
And, where that reward space would be, and I was like, wait a minute.
Because
duh.
Right. And see, the one thing that I see with, leading into Souls is that after you're level 99, or after you've done Alpha versus Omega, you have no need for Souls going forward. So it would either have to, like you said, provide that ectoplasm or that matter or whatever it was from that event or something similar to that, or it would have to, be an alternate form of XP, because, I don't think we, really, when Necromancy came out, envisioned that Essence Rituals would be the meta to 120.
Yeah, no. And, I mean, I don't know. This might be... I don't know, Shane. What would you think about this? Perhaps an additional, albeit smaller, source of ectoplasm?
Yeah, that would be fine. Because we got the main source of ectoplasm last week, and I feel like awarding, not necessarily a token amount of ectoplasm, but a small amount of ectoplasm probably wouldn't be a bad idea, given what the theme of that event was.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Or even if you can pick up something on there that sort of increases the chances of extra ectoplasm or extra souls, or you're making a soul cloth. If you've done that there, it'll give you that chance to get an extra in soul cloth for an hour after you've done something.
That's an idea. Like some
like
form of
cash bonuses.
Like the cash bonuses. But then you're adding an element of Dailyscape to Necromancy.
Well,
is that a good idea? I don't know.
No. I don't know if you. I mean, you do it. Okay, maybe it's a once a week thing. If you look at things like, I did Face Punch Bonanza.
I hated Face Punch Bonanza.
See, I loved it because it was giving me I was using it to get the patch bombs for farming and things like that. There was some nice little just niche rewards, but something that I found useful that I could get. Didn't have to make them through Invention and such. I could just go play a bit of that, have a little bit of fun. It just gave it just sort of
here's
gave you something
another
different
idea.
to do.
Here's another idea. Loop it into use the framework that was used for the Flash events and make it so that it's a different area inside the house, using a similar kind of randomness associated with that Flash event, where, you have to go there, and you could, make it at that point then even multiple times a day if it's something that you engage with for less than 5 minutes.
Oh, that would be fun. And it would bring one of the things from that event back, which was the community participation.
Yes. And that's why I mentioned that.
Yeah, no, that would be perfect. And it kind of goes with, I didn't bring this up, but one of the things I was thinking is, Dev's house being a magical house, being all, it could be anything he wanted. And what if he he decided, with all this stuff going on, he was just going to open up a little bed and breakfast, on the second floor, and damn it, wouldn't it got haunted, and needs our help again. And
yeah, go to a different place in the house and do
the kitchen
and do
the,
one of 3 or 4 different little random events inside the house and cleanse it on that. And I think with that you capture the essence of what that event was, reuse the environment, so to speak, lean into some of the rewards on it, but also make it so that it's not, prohibitively offensive in terms of daily scape. Because I don't think flash events were prohibitively offensive like that.
No, I mean, I hate sometimes that we have to always think about the lowest common denominator because
But,
it's
I mean, there's so
I
many
don't
people
know.
still do the wilderness events. I mean, I only do the ones that give the extra wild reward, but there's still, I mean, so many people there still doing it this much later. Everyone's chasing obviously the dark
core.
facet,
Yeah.
the dark core, but I mean, it's something that is still to this day a highly, a lot of players are interacting with. So that type of thing, I like the idea where it is more of a community event again, where it's every hour, every 2 hours that, we go and we do one of these events and things. And, that way it's, I mean, it's sort of daily scape, but, if you don't feel like doing it today, you can go and do 2 or 3 tomorrow or, whatever. But again, it gives just that little bit of variation to training, and just that little fun event that was very well received and loved back in the day.
And to be fair, the reason I said lean into the Flash event framework is because I feel like mini games like Face Punch, like Castle Wars, are dead unless they're on Spotlight, which you don't want to happen for this.
No, I think I mean, I think it's a good idea, Shane. I think that it would make it work with that community thing. I'm just really, I don't know if it's because I'm Gen X or what, but I don't feel compelled to do shit ever, no matter what. So
I do what I want.
I would do it just for fun because I wanted to.
Well, what you would do then is you would add, like you said, maybe something related to souls that give you, something that you can use as the focus object, some necromancy XP associated with it, and some ectoplasm. And that would have to be your reason for doing that, would be the necromancy XP and the things you can use for souls or what have you on the ritual marker. Because I'll tell you, in Fresh Start Worlds, I was setting alarms for the farming one. So, there will be people who will do that if you offer necromancy XP up in that way, that you don't need to.
Yeah,
you don't need to ritual.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, obviously, it all comes down to balancing, right? But just as a general concept, as what we've come to know as Game Jam, that's what I'd like to see.
Right on. It's good. All right, we're going to step on the hornet's nest now. Pernasius, go.
And no, it is not the old Comp Cape rework that everyone would expect me to think of. Mine is Prestige mode. Obviously, I'm closing in on 200 mil all, and I love this game. I don't. Pernasius is my character. That's me in game. Yeah, I have a few alt accounts, but I mean, I don't have that same connection to those accounts as I do with this one. This is the one I love to play. I've built up everything that I have on it, and once you sort of hit 200 mil, there's nothing to do. So we've talked Prestige before, and I mean, they had a plan a while ago. Prestige 1, you then double to 26 mil, and Prestige 2 goes to 52 mil, and they sort of keep going up and up from there. But just anything that sort of opens the game up again to players once they hit that 200 mil in favorite skills. Slayer, I've still got to complete the Slayer log, but I don't, because I'm not really getting XP, I don't get that same joy out of it as watching that counter tick up. And especially with, there's been a lot of new sort of mid and sort of mid-high range Slayer creatures and different training methods, and even Slayer masters that have come into the game after I've reached it, that I'll go and just do to get the unlocks that I need to do to keep my comp cape, but
Yeah.
that's it. To be able to prestige and then work through and do that new content as it is supposed to be played, and not as a 200 mil max player where I just rush through and do it all, would be great. And the same with you with farming, to be able to go through and do a lot of that new stuff again, to work up to to get to that 99, to then open up your farms and all that type of stuff, instead of just going, oh yeah, it's been released, I can just go and smash through it all and get it done. I'd love to see something like that in game happen. People say, oh, but what about the community high scores issue? Well, you've got your 200 mil legacy high scores. I mean, that's not going to change.
And I think that's the solution, is that with any kind of prestige mode, prestige 1 or prestige 0 rather, whenever people go through the skill, whenever there's a new skill that comes out, the high scores as we know it now are a static entity for all the 200 mils and whatnot. So I think you keep that as it is, and what you do instead is you in effect have a variant on the seasonal or the fresh start high scores. We know they can do that now, and effectively what it would be is just a different high score table that would show I think the way I'd do it is you just show all prestige and then have an option to limit it to prestige 0 like the base, then show prestige 1s, prestige 2s, and see where people are along this race, and then you could filter and sort based on that. And I think that's how you solve the high score problem, where you say prestige 0, the high scores as it is now will not change. If you were number 1 in farming when it first came out, you will maintain that number 1 slot, and that will be the high scores, and you will need to go to a different page, different system in the high scores to see.
That's right. That will always be the default page, because that is the legacy, the tradition of RuneScape.
Yeah, and I think that's how you solve that issue. And I want to say, for people who are newer to the podcast, it was me actually, when Rune Labs was happening, that got the prestige system onto a vote. It didn't go very far, but the proposal is the one that I wrote up. It got some votes behind it, and it didn't take off. Primarily because of this high score issue and the question of what was going to happen to people's unlocks. So,
but also there weren't as many maxed out players back then either.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at how many sort of 5.8 bill players there are these days. You look at how many people have 200 mil in their favorite skill. I was looking through my friends list, and there's 6 or 7 players there who have all hit the 120s and basically quit the game. They come back, they'll buy a month's membership every now and then to come back and play new quests and things, and then they're gone again. I know 3 of them did have Premier Club that they gave up on because they've reached their goals. There's nothing there for them. They've hit their 200 mils in their favorite skill. They've got 120 all in everything else. So it's that they've just basically given up, and they'll come back occasionally. But I think if you had something like a prestige where your favorite skill can just be prestige over and over and over again, it'll keep those sort of end game players interested. And as I said, not everyone's interested in just reaching 200 mil all and then just PVMing.
And I kind of want to lean into that now for 2 reasons. The first one is that one of the things when Prestige initially came about is that it would just be, lifting the 200 mil off and making it an endless race. So people, would have to, keep racing indefinitely for that, and the legacy system wouldn't have existed. And I think that was the problem in the original proposal that didn't make it get support. But I also think that lifting 200 mil still might be a bit of a technical problem based on how they do the decimals in game, in particular that they use that last digit there as the decimal, and that's why 200 mil is the cap, the 2.1 billion in 32 cap. But
that again was tied to the 32-bit system, and that's why they were able to change the money pouch.
No. the money pouch and the GE stuff, you do not want to know how they got around that. They did not move beyond the 32-bit integer for that. They did some wacky stuff with combining,
I thought it
with
was
combining integers
because of the
with
64.
that. No.
Okay.
They did
Fair
some really
enough.
strange stuff with that that I don't
Okay.
even want to go into right now.
So I
It's
can't
just
go
weird.
5.8 bill on Slayer?
No, I don't think you can. I think Prestige is going to have to be the way to go on that.
And I think Prestige would be the best way, obviously, because you can keep that high score legacy that way.
Yeah. And the other thing with 200 mil that I want to address before I get into the potential options that you were mentioning about the ways to do this is that I have, in many cases, moved away from the idea of Prestige. I personally, right now, am 50-50 on whether or not I think we need it. I still think it's a fun thing to talk about. And, I want you guys to talk about what makes you guys interested. That's why we're doing this here. But I have been questioning, for ever since probably archaeology-ish or so, is something like this healthy for the game in terms of progression to have this going? Or would it be better to make content that allows more, as it's called, horizontal progression like that, as in things you can do at 99, things you can do at 120, and things that you can do at 200 that keep you engaging in the skill? I don't know. Like I said, I think Prestige mode is a fun idea, but I think there are other ways of keeping people engaged with the skill, but Prestige mode could be, and is framed as one of those, I'd say. But that's all I want to say on that right now, because this is meant to be a pro-Prestige segment.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Tennis?
Like you guys, all I can say really is I used to think of Prestige as, basically just being able to break that cap. I thought of it in terms of XP, basically. But over the last year, playing, leagues and old school and fresh start and RS3, one of the things I really enjoyed was replaying this content, and that made me think about Prestige in a different way. Not just the numbers, but the ability, like you were talking about, to go through the content again.
At the level it's supposed to be done at, yeah.
Yeah, and I found it really, I just found that to be a lot of fun when I was doing it before. So I was a fan of Prestige when we first talked about it, and even bigger fan now just because...
In a different incarnation.
In a different way, yeah. Yeah, I'm not even thinking about the XP quite so much as I'm thinking about, that was fun the last time I did archaeology again, and I did Slayer again. That was fun. Like, it would be nice if it was your your main character, our little RuneScape avatar.
Because that is the one we were attached to. As I said, I've got 3 or 4 alts, but they're like, they don't have that same pull to the game that your main character does, because that's the one you sort of built as your character in game. That is your persona in game, and you've built up the different cosmetics you want. You've got the pets that you want and things like that. You've chased what you want and such. And speaking of pets, that is a second option that we could have, where once you hit 200 mil, you can then start leveling up the skill pet. And at each level, he gets a little cape as well. He gets a 99 cape. He gets a 120 cape. At if you
I
get
forget
into
who
200 mil, his cape
suggested
turns
that
gold.
about
awesome.
that being a way of doing it, siphoning the XP off into a pet or what have you on that. But I think that would probably be the preferred way of doing it in this day and age, and then have, of course, the prestige capes as well, which I think you have to have as part of the reward space.
Oh, yeah.
One of them, of course, being the inverted cape. That is unfinished business for many of us. Let people grind for it if they want it. I'd say, just bite the bullet and put them in the game.
Yep.
So I think that's definitely the preferred way of going about this here for it is using the pet as the
see.
So let me just talk about this from a technical perspective, because we talk about siphoning the XP into a pet. So what the game would effectively do is you would have this pet and it would see where you were at XP wise and if you'd siphoned it before. And then if you haven't, it would in effect upgrade the pet, siphon the XP away, and reduce the XP. Now, we know this is technically possible in game, believe it or not, to remove XP. We know it is. Because Nastroth, as we talked about a few weeks back, has the option to remove XP for peers. And if you look at the skill peer page on the wiki, there is now a list of quests that can be completed by skill peers when you use a skill reset. So the idea behind this is that even if you skill reset, these quests are still completed. So the technology for removing XP from a character or preventing you from getting XP exists in the game, and setting the XP to a certain level does indeed exist in the game. So it's just a question of applying that to this. So, and I think that was also one of the humps that we had to get over when Prestige was first announced, is that there was no way in the engine to allow the players to reset XP. But now there is. So technically, it should be doable. Feasibility-wise, I don't know. That's something, that Jagex would have to evaluate on this. But I think the next thing that I want to ask the both of you on this is, how do you sell this to the community and how do you sell this to Jagex? Those can be two separate or two of the same questions, depending on how you want to answer it.
Well, I mean, to Jagex, it's easy. You're going to bring back players who have maxed out and enjoyed a skill and want to take it further on.
But is that worth doing when you could have them just make another account instead?
But a lot of players aren't making other accounts. They're going on to other games.
There is a group of people who would rather work on their same account, like you said.
Yep. The only issue with the pet one is, again, it is locked. Once you hit the 200 mil, it's capped again. The thing with the prestige is you can keep prestiging over and over again. As you said, it brings out a new set of high scores for people to compete for. So you'll have your legacy high score, but then you'll have a whole new race for a new high score.
And I don't know if I'd do prestige at 200 mil. I'd do prestige at 13,034,000 XP. Like after you get like if a skill goes to 99, I think the prestige should be 13 million. If a skill goes to 120, it should be 104. Or would you guys do it at 200?
I would do 200 because that is the actual cap. So you can still get on that high scores board of 5.8 bill, and then when a new skill comes out, you still have that chance to race for that top spot in overall XP. That legacy high scoreboard is always going to be there. But with the prestige, then you set up, as you said, the prestige 1, prestige 2, etc. You've got a whole new race on the different ones, and there are a lot of competitive people out there who would chase that type of thing. So you're appealing to those competitive people. You're keeping that sort of completionist player base, members, and going through and playing the content that they love, and that it also interacts with that mid-level content that they've all passed already. So Jagex can continue developing that without the complaints that a lot of the sort of high-end people have when they bring out something that's sort of more mid-tier, those level 70, level 80 areas that people have gone through, because, hey, well, when I prestige, I'm going to be playing that properly as it's supposed to be played anyway. I just think it opens up the game more. Again, it's a 20-year-old game. I mean, there are a lot of max players. It gives more longevity. But yeah, as you said, is the expense of developing it and putting it all in going to be worth it? In my mind, yes. I don't know how much it costs to do that type of thing. I mean, they have to sort of cross the T's, dot the I's for the investors and such to make sure that it is going to be viable and it is going to be worth doing. But it is something that myself personally would love to see and will keep me around after, because I mean, as I said, I'm pretty much 190 on everything. Now going for the 200 mil all. Once I do that, I don't know if I'll take if I'll do a Premier Club next year again, because I probably won't be around that much once I hit the 200 mil all.
Yeah, and then it's a question of, well, do you go for something even more granular along the way, like boss logs or something to that effect? Or if you're a skiller, does this, provide a certain, extra level of progression for that? And in many ways, I think this would be easier than developing, more horizontal content for, the 29 skills in the game to do.
Well, that's something that I wanted to bring up, because, like when you talk about a 20-year-old game, we've got 20 years of pretty good content. So let's just work on replayability. And this is a major step towards replayability.
Right. And anybody who did Fresh Start knows that, the starting game experience in RS3 is wonderful, and most of the mid-game content too that, is worked on for mobile is also still really, really good. So,
and look how much improvements to the larger game we got from having people replaying the game and going through. We've gotten several things came out of that. So I see it as you can only get good things from this.
Yeah, and I'm tending to believe that the reason it didn't really gain traction back in the day was that it was primarily a framing issue, like I mentioned, but also like you, I believe, Pernasius said, is that how many people were 120 all or 200 mil all back then? Certainly not as many as today.
Exactly.
Right, and I put my.
I mean, that's the reason they brought out the 120 capes. They didn't do it initially because there weren't, when people were talking about it, because there weren't enough accounts at 120.
Right, and then why did the 120 max all cape come out? Right.
Yeah, because there were a lot more people at 120 and chasing that 120 goal. So yeah, it's just something I think that that they probably need to relook at for those reasons. That it is an older game. It isn't. A lot more people are in that sort of 200 mil all or 120 all, and they've quit. But if they can prestige, okay, I can hit that and then go back on my favorite skill. Whether it be Slayer, whether it be farming, whether it be construction, they can start chasing those on the prestige level.
Yeah, and it really does then say, I'm making a new account because I want a different kind of experience, a different kind of build. Whereas if I stay on my main account, it's because I want to keep training skills and keep just making, my character better and better and better. And to be fair, in terms of reward for this, we didn't really talk about rewards for prestiging. We're talking about maybe a cape that has a few extra particles on it or changes color, I think.
Exactly. All they need,
or a pet that gets some extra adornments or something,
exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Like, we're not talking about anything truly substantial with this reward-wise. Just maybe some cape alterations and maybe a pet that does something.
That's right. You could even have, okay, I've got two, I've prestige one. My pet has a little cape. It's got the, it now has that with, P1 on it or P2 on it, so it's to show your prestige. So it's only on the pet, you just, as you said, extra particles on your main cape and a little pet that has its own little cape to show that it's prestige, things like that. I don't think that the players who want that type of thing, I don't think it's not really a reward thing. It's a love of a skill, and that's why they want to continue it on. And as I said, like myself, I mean, I've still got a few drops to go in my Slayer log. I think I've got probably another 8 or 9 items I need to get, but I'm not rushing to it because there's just, I'm 200 mil all. There's no real, other than getting that drop, I'm not really getting anything out of the skill now.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, I'd be interested to see what polling on this looks like today. See if it's better. I have a feeling it would be, but I feel like we've made the case on all three. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add to any of them or your own?
No, I'm good.
All right. Right on then. Well, we're going to move on. We do have a few achievements this week. Ozazoyo got 200 million Constitution. Pernasius, you got 200 million mining?
Yeah, that was accidental. That was just
accidental.
Doing the world, because I do the wilderness events. So the rock down at from the wilderness volcano, I do that every time it comes up.
Okay.
So I didn't even realize it was that you sort of got that much XP from it, and all of a sudden it clicks up. I'm going, hang on, what are you talking about? I thought you only got like 1 XP per drop, but apparently at the end of it, when you finish it, there's like
it's substantial
60k drop or something. Yeah. So I've been doing these for a year. I haven't touched mining for a year other than the rock. And I've done like over 3 mil XP in that time just here.
Wow. Okay. Arendelle 20 got 120 fishing, and Jad Chor got 120 necromancy. Those are on the 27th and the 25th, respectively. All right, Tannis, pick of the week. What do you got for us?
So I have something that has been positively reviewed this week. This time.
Sorry about that. I remember that.
No, but to be honest, I have not personally seen this show, but I have heard tons of recommendations for it. And because we are who we are and we do what we do, I think this is a good place to have a pick of the week be Fallout, the I think the Amazon series. A lot of people are saying it may be one of the best takes from a video game ever. So that's really cool.
I've had people who are watching it and playing the game, and they say the show is better than the game, and they love the game.
Well, it depends what Fallout you're talking about, I think.
I think the first one, they were talking about. But yeah.
So what's the premise?
It's Fallout.
Okay, so it's basically the same as the video games then?
That's my understanding.
Okay. And, of course, for anybody unaware, the name implies nuclear winter, what happens after that. Survival-based, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's like a nuclear war in 2077. It takes on from there and sort of follows a couple of the characters through the wastelands of America.
Do we know if it's going to get renewed for another season? Because I know these are always something.
Did.
Oh, it already did. Wow. Okay.
I think so.
Which is very unusual. I mean, it shows how popular the uptake was. Because it got renewed, I think, after the 4th episode.
Mm-hmm.
For another season already. So, I binge watch things. So once the whole season's up, I'll be watching it. But yeah, I have not heard one bad review on it.
Yeah, and I know that the video games are pretty revered, and it's always difficult to find and make that connection between, what is a good game and is it going to be a good TV show. So that's good that people are saying that it's actually somewhat decent. So that's good. And I assume it's all dumped at once.
No, it's a week by week one.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's week by week.
Yeah, that's why I'm waiting. I'm a binge watcher.
Yeah, okay, Amazon does that.
Yeah, it's just like they do with, or just like CBS does with Star Trek, week by week.
Yep.
All right, fair enough. Well, we have a link in that, or a link to that, rather, in the show notes over at update.show. What have we been doing on RS? Let's start with you then, Tanis. Since Pernasius already clued us in a bit, we'll touch base with him after.
Well, it's funny we talk about 200 mils, because I don't know if I will get 200 mil Slayer first, or if I'll get 120 Necromancy, but after kind of getting reminded of Necromancy, last week, I started working on 120, because I never did 120 Necromancy, I did 99, so having some fun doing.
I always knew you'd do it the
Necro
Slayer route.
Yeah.
rather than the ritual route.
Yeah.
How are you finding that, given that you don't need to worry about the affinities and the weaknesses of the monsters and whatnot?
I was just sitting here thinking, holy crap, I can't believe Erets are this easy. They never used to be. Yeah, because I didn't do a lot of Slayer tasks when I was doing 99. I had pre-bottled a bunch of souls. Well, I pre-bottled a bunch of souls and put them in my dungeon. And so I did certain Slayer creatures, but I wasn't doing Slayer tasks or anything. And they were all undead, right? That's where I could use Salve, Amulet, maximize everything. But now I'm just doing tasks and just... It's definitely the Slayer combat style. Yeah. Yeah, it feels pretty good.
Yeah, I know that was one of the main things that was finicky to me, that always made it that, I never liked doing Slayer, because would have to change between armor sets and whatnot. So I'm glad that's no longer a thing with that. All right, sounds good. Pernasius, so aside from the 200 million mining, what have you been up to?
Yeah, well, as I said, that was only accidental. I've been basically just fishing swarm fishing down at the Fishing Guild. Obviously, the back has been playing up a lot, so I'm just looking at AFK stuff. I am at 185 mil fishing. I got 150 mil necromancy earlier in the week down at the Twins. I've had the drop log complete all but one pet at by 500 kills. I just clicked over, I think it was 900, still chasing one of the pets there. Taken off 45 seconds off my best time with necromancy.
Yeah, and that's necromancy plus, focusing on and trying to find things and refine things in your character build.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. That's sort of more of a lean forward type thing. Starting to learn some semi-manual combat. But even when I just sort of sometimes sit back and just click moving around, occasionally hitting the sort of my souls and death skulls. Best times are still well below what my best time was when I was doing with magic and such. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Last week I went back to Zuck, got to Zuck 3 times in a row. Just got to refine my prayer switching properly for him too, getting back onto the mage and dodging some of his sweeps and things. But I'll get back to that probably hopefully this weekend, maybe next weekend. Just depends how the back goes. But yeah, just enjoying kicking back on my slow grind to 200 mil all.
It's certainly a management game, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
So, in terms of, managing the movement and whatnot, and I feel like that's one of the crossovers that still exists in various bosses in RS3 that is, definitely an old school hallmark on that. But bosses in general, I was very happy last night. I finally completed my Raziel drop log. I got the last piece that I needed for that, and that, of course, was the Soulbound Lantern. I completed it at 1,276 kills.
Yay!
And, based in general in terms of where the drops land, I was overdue on a drop, and I was just very lucky that it was actually the one that I needed. Because I had only got 4 duplicates across this entire venture over 1,276 kills. I got an extra main hand, an extra helmet, an extra foot piece, and an extra pair of gloves. Everything else was unique.
Very nice.
Very lucky.
Well, yeah, and I looked into this, and 1,600, 1,700 kills is the expected range for completing something like the Raziel drop log. And I did it in 1,276.
Well, you always gotta be better.
There's the horseshoe.
I guess it worked out in the end. The horseshoe idea did manifest itself for that, because I know in the first 600 the drops were there, and I really only got 2 drops in my last 600 kills or so. And I got everything else before that, which says something on that. But
they can't let you be too lucky. Can't give you God mode give you full God mode. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
demigod mode, not full God mode.
I think I'm headed to hard mode care back next.
Very nice.
But
Get it.
Aside from that, I can now report that I do have 120 fletching banked.
Banked.
I completed. I know I mentioned I was working on that last week, but I completed that this week. I got the remaining bits of the dinosaur propellant for the Dine Arrows that I will be making come the next double XP weekend in a few weeks. In addition to a boatload of proteins that I have just sitting in my bank, so that's going to be this double XP. So
Protein weekend.
Yeah, that's pretty much what the way I'm seeing it there for that. But
yeah.
On old school, I got 72 thieving, which you would think is a pain, but Varlamore brought in a new thieving training method that is far more relaxed compared to what we had before, which was blackjacking. Yeah.
Yes.
You guys don't have monkey knife fighters?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I think you would.
Or we would, but they're not like the a main way of training in that way, because you still have to blackjack them for that, I think.
Yeah.
So, but blackjacking is the meta for it, but there's other things like stealing artifacts up in Zaya. But the thing that was really good about this one is that it was kind of the way we see thieving in RS3, or rather pickpocketing, because every so often at the central square in Varlamore, a child will come and start making noise, distracting a wealthy citizen, and then when that wealthy citizen gets distracted, you get like 30 seconds to a minute of just lean back, continual pickpocketing from them, and it's that pickpocketing that provides house keys. And then you can, of course, pickpocket the wealthy citizens even if they're not distracted, though you just got to do it in the traditional way. Then you take those house keys and you break into one of 3 houses in Varlamore, look for the valuables in there. It uses a safe cracking like mechanic where an arrow will spawn above something that's an XP hotspot that'll give you a big drop of XP. And then you just, do that kind of lean back kind of training there. And then as soon as the homeowner starts coming back, you just jump out the window and then move on to the next house. So it's a good thieving training method for people who don't want to, go for the micro intensive route.
And you can't sort of build up your own little group of urchins to go and start crying to.
No, you can't make them do that on their own. You gotta wait for them to do that.
You can't Oliver Twist them, eh?
No. But that pretty much brings us to the end of this episode. Each and every week, you want more old school, update.show/OS. Sirion and I record a show on that, and that releases every Sunday. We've had some interesting weeks going back, talking about combat-related things, if you're interested in how things are going over there. But for the RS3 show, if you want to get that delivered each and every week, best way to do that is to subscribe, update.show/subscribe. Pernasius, thanks for being here, as always.
Thank you for the invite, and thank you for everyone putting up with my voice again. Right on.
And, of course, Tanis as well, as he is here each and every week. And we'll be back next week.
Our favorite Australian.
Oh, that was hilarious. Somebody wrote in once and said that Tanis was their favorite Australian, which I don't know how that happened, but okay. But we're on all the podcast listeners, Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, and YouTube, of course, as well, youtube.com/RSBANDB. And with that being said, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Happy scaping all.